All right, good evening. The time is now 5:30, and we will call the June 14th County Council meeting to order. And we'll begin with an invocation by Councilman Clark, followed by the pledge of allegiance. All the ladies will stand.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this day like no other, Lord God. Father God, we ask for you to continue to grant us the many blessings that you have already given us, God. Oh, Heavenly Father, we ask you to be in the midst of this meeting, Father God, as we gather here to discuss the business and the concern of Lawrence County, Lord God. Father God, we thank for everybody that came out to join us in this meeting. Continue to watch over them as well, Lord God. Continue to watch over our nation, our country, and our county, Lord God. This is your servant. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening and welcome this evening. Before we get started, today is June 14th, and there is two primaries going on in Lawrence County. And that's one of our election commissioners here. If you haven't voted, there is still time. The polls are open for another hour and a half, so if you need to slide out and go vote. All right, first up, we have approval of the agenda for the 14th. There is one addition under executive sessions, a legal briefing for Bridgeway lawsuit. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the addition?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Carroll. Are there any other additions or deletions? And then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the May 24th regular session and the May 3rd executive session. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the minutes of our May 24th meeting, and our May 3rd meeting, with the necessary correction if there be any.
All right, a motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Clark. Are there any additions or deletions to those two sets of minutes? And then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. All right, no reports to council this evening. We will jump into old business. Are there any new submissions from council for board appointments? All right, here none, we'll move to third reading on ordinance 919. That is the realty land conservancy. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a project that's been known as Project Dogwood, going into the Clinton Spec Building on Highway 72, right there at exit 54. It's right at a $17 million investment and 135 new jobs. It's a great company, machine company, engineering company. That'll be a great asset to the county. We won't have our normal release or announcement from the governor's office tomorrow. It'll be a few months from now, but that's what the project is.
All right. Do I have any questions from Mr. Coleman on the kilo agreement for Project Dogwood? Then I'll call for a motion for third and final reading of ordinance 919. Second by Mr. Carroll. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to say thank you again for those that had a hand in bringing this entity in, and we are excited for Clinton to get something in that spec building that they've been working on for a while. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of third and final reading ordinance 919, please raise your right hand. 7-0. To follow that up, ordinance 920 is installing that in a multi-county park. Mr. Christian, do you have anything to add on that?
Nothing to add. Just as a reminder, we had public hearings for both of these at a previous one.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion for third and final reading on ordinance 920, putting Project Dogwood in a multi-county park? Motion by Mr. Trill, second by Mr. Carroll. Is there any discussion? Here none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of third and final reading ordinance 920, please raise your right 7-0. All right, next up, we have a public hearing on ordinance 921. Before we open the floor, I'm calling the county administrator to give us an update on where we are on the general operating budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council. After the last workshop we had with the entirety of council, staff and myself went back and took those suggestions the council gave us, plugged them into the budget, and what we did is we evaluated on the revenues and expenditures, more of the revenues based on historical revenues. Once we factored in the trend on historical revenues, we're able to end up with a balanced budget with 0 tax increase to the general fund. And there would be a marginal increase to EMS and fire with the parameters set by the state code laws, which were discussed at the last workshop. So we do have a balanced budget this year.
All right, thank you, sir. And now looking forward, it's 5:36 for a public hearing on ordinance 921, the general operating budget FY 22-23. If you'd like to address council, please step forward and state your name. Good evening, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Sir? And I don't know. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I want to, my question is about the EMS and what's in the budget for EMS fiscal year 2023. More specifically, a rule. What is the rule? 2009, this council, not you gentlemen, and ladies, created a rule that, Lawrence County will allow the taxpayers a 911 service, an EMT service, EMS service, any hospital they choose to go to. In 2019, the council changed that rule where you have to come to Lawrence County Hospital, no matter where the ambulance picks you up at, no matter where you want to go, you have to come to Lawrence County Hospital. In the discussion, my question is first is that what is the rule today? We know.
So I think I can respond to that.
All right.
And the director of EMS is sitting in here, so if I misspeak, I would love for him to correct me. The ordinance that was created, or the policy and procedure, the standard operating procedure for EMS that you're referencing from 2009 is the same policy that they operate under today. There was discussion, and I was involved in it in 2019, probably June of 2019. We discussed EMS and out-of-county transports. There was some concern over that, and there was just conversation. Nothing changed on their policy. So unless something else is different, that policy that you're referencing is what they go by today.
So an EMS unit shows up, and I prefer to go to Greenville or Greenwood, and they can go there. Is that correct?
As long as that at least 50% of our fleet.
50% of our fleet. So that is the established rule. Okay, thank you for that. Next question is that, when you're speaking about the fleet, I don't know whether directed question to you or to the council. Do you feel like we have enough EMS units in the county? Okay, good answer. Thank you. Do you feel like the EMTs are overworked? No. Okay. My question back to the council is, do you know how much money that you have budgeted for overtime pay for EMTs? I can tell you, it's 40% of your salary budget. 40% of your salary budget goes to being overworked EMTs. I don't know of any company anywhere that would run with their salaries 40% plus in overtime. What we're doing is we're taking taxpayers' dollars, we're paying time and a half for that. So in other words, it's 133%, where you could have got it at 100% if you hired another EMT or two. It's $600,000 for the year 2022. $600,000. Do you know what the current average salary is of a Lawrence County EMT without overtime? It's somewhere between $37,000 and $54,000. If I'm wrong, gentlemen, tell me. Thank you, sir. So my point is that you could go hire 2 or 3 more EMTs and actually save money. The next issue is you say you can't hire EMTs because Greenville, Spartanburg, Greenwood, and all the large cities around here pay more money. You can give these gentlemen and these ladies a raise of $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year. You keep them happy and don't overwork them. You're overworking, okay? You know, there's rules and laws that says truck drivers can only drive so much in a week. The reason being is fatigue. Airline pilots can only work so many hours in a week based off of fatigue. You're overworking EMTs, you're underpaying them. And who's paying for this is a large amount of taxpayers. We're paying the price because of the budget of $600,000 in overtime. You could actually pay these ladies and gentlemen more money. You could buy more EMS units. You can hire more EMTs and give these folks a raise. But instead, it's service to go.
I would love to at least explain, because you are giving information and you're giving numbers and you're stating them as facts.
These are numbers too. This is not like I'm making them up.
I agree, but maybe I can help you understand.
Well,
This is not adversarial. I would love to educate you a little bit on EMS. I understand it a tiny little bit. Been in it 30 years and I'm sorry. I just want to explain. When you reference percentage of overtime, you have to understand that our EMS workers work a 24-hour schedule.
yes, sir.
They have budgeted overtime because they'll work a 24-hour shift. They'll be off for 48 hours. They'll work a 24-hour shift. They'll be off for 48 hours. There'll be a week, a Sunday through Saturday week, that they'll work 72 hours in that week. That's 3 24-hour days.
Yes, sir.
Wage and hour requires everything over 40 hours is paid at time and a half or overtime. So their budgeted overtime is going to be 30+% of their normal pay. We don't work 8-hour shifts. We don't work 12-hour shifts. We work 24-hour shifts. So to just blanket paint that we could fix our EMS by doing away with overtime and hiring more EMTs is disingenuous. Now, me, I'm all for schedules that are less taxing on the EMS employee. I am. Whether it's 8 hours, 12 hours, or whatever, I'm all for that. Matter of fact, if you've ever been listening to anything I've ever said, some of this pushback I've got is I think 12-hour shifts are more appropriate for EMS because exactly what you're saying. So you're not coming and telling me anything that I don't believe, but there is increase in staff. You said we need to add staff. There's increase in cost to the staff because you pay the same annual, but you have to add more staff. So I'm all for that. But if you ask the employees of the department, are you forced into working a 24-hour shift? Do you want to go to 12s? I'm not putting you on the spot, Mr. Director, but what is your staff going to say they want to do? They want to stay 24s. And the same thing where they have the overtime built in. So I appreciate everything you're saying, and I would love to use those things too. But we're keeping the employees happy by giving them the schedule they want. In our budget, if we were paying attention, we have put in the budget to add more trucks. We did.
I haven't seen the 2023.
Well, we've had budget meetings. It's open to the public. It's on TV. It's recorded. Anything, if you've been here and paid attention, that's what we've done. So we've done that. So that talks over the overwork we're working on, the percentage of overtime. I'm telling you, EMS is not covered by DOT laws. That would be the truck drivers and things you reference. We are under South Carolina DHEC EMS, so we don't fall under DOT laws. I can't help that in certain situations, there is fatigue, but they know that, and we work with that. We try to limit that. To being underpaid, I will tell you, I'll take responsibility for giving our EMS workers a pay raise, which we did last year to the point where we were paying more than Greenville, Spartanburg, Greenwood. Oh, we blew past them and what we were starting our responders at. Am I telling it untruth?
Absolutely correct.
Absolutely correct.
It was a 20% raise. That's good.
So everything that you're coming up and giving, we're doing exactly what you're saying. There is nothing funny in the budget. There's nothing funny in what we're doing. And I have full understanding of operations of EMS. If there's nothing else I know EMS. And so I'll take any idea you give, but I've thought of it. I've seen it, done it, I've lived it. I'm not the expert, but I'm a subject matter expert. I could certainly testify to anything. You bring something up about EMS, I'm gonna be able to make you understand, or try to make you understand what the facts are, not what the emotions are. And on that, we're doing everything we can. We know nationwide EMS is overworked, underpaid, if you will, overworked. We need to do more with less. We need to get their hours down. That's national stuff, and we agree here too. We're working on it. I promise you we are. And in this budget, we're addressing some of those things that you're referencing. I don't feel attacked or anything, but the things that you're saying are just not true as it relates to us, because we are addressing every single thing that it seems like you're saying we don't address.
Well, I was just going to ask a question when I look at the budget, when it says overtime, $600,000.
Yep.
This is on historical data from 2018 all the way to 2022. That's a budget of 40% over the salaries.
They've
So
been
when I look at,
24-hour shifts
I
ever
understand.
since inception. It has built in overtime, so that percentage will be there since 1970 something when they started till we switched to 12-hour shifts. It doesn't mean that we have all these openings for regular hours that we're having to pay with overtime. Because how many openings do you have, Mr. Director?
3 today.
They got 3 openings.
Yeah.
So 3 openings are not causing 40% overtime in the department. What it is budgeted overtime.
Okay. Well, the numbers are misleading to me. When you have overtime.
Absolutely.
Overtime,
Yes.
I'm thinking in time and a half. So it's costing you 133%. That's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
I think with over the historical data for the last 5 or 6 years, you can look at it and say, you put that in the salary, so it doesn't look as bad.
But
Because it looks like an inflated number.
I'm not an accountant, but I know something about accounting. The way you have to pay wage and hour things, the regular hours have to be put as regular, the overtime hours have to be documented as overtime. So we know when we budget for their particular department, and they're an anomaly. If you do their budget for this county, I'm sure they're an anomaly. They have this ridiculously large overtime number that you would think you would never budget for that, but it's just built into their regular schedule of what it takes to run a unit. Fire would be the same way.
That's fair enough. Just better understand from you. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
I apologize if I wasn't trying to be out of line, but I wanted to make sure we all knew exactly what we were talking about. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody ever calls me and asks me. I'll try to clarify because it's complicated. It is. Public safety is complicated. And
The
if all
biggest
you,
thing was that the point is that anybody in the county can go to the hospital they're choosing.
yes, sir. And I would love to maybe speak 20 seconds on that. Yes.
What happens is.
I mean, can I?
Okay, good work.
Thank you. Because back in 2019, I apologize to everybody if I'm monopolizing time, but I think it's a good conversation. Back in 2019, we had a request from the director at that time to limit out-of-county transports because it was taxing the system. We may have had a lot of openings at the time. Maybe our call volume had gone up some. I can't tell you exactly the reason, but they wanted some relief, and they wanted the county to give them some relief.
Right.
And we had a good conversation, kind of like we're having tonight. And what we came up with was that we would give them the ability, if someone say let's reference the county square, we're here. If you twisted your ankle on the steps and an ambulance came to pick you up and you wanted to go to St. Francis Hospital for a twisted ankle, and we didn't have one ambulance left in the county. At the time, we were running 6 ambulances a day. And you have 67,000 people living in this county of over 700 square miles. And we're down to 1 truck for the entire county for a twisted ankle that could easily go to Lawrence Hospital and be treated. Why in the world would we take that resource an hour and a half away to St. Francis Hospital, knowing that they have the transport, the turnaround, if it's 5 o'clock, they're battling 85 through 85. A cardiac arrest comes in, they're sitting in Greenville County with a twisted ankle, and this could be your loved one. We've wasted our resource. That's bad business. So what we want to have is the ability to look at each case on a case-by-case basis, make a transport determination based on the acuity of the call, what the patient has, and what our local hospital can handle, and make that decision. If then the patient or their family was adamant they needed to go somewhere else because of insurance or doctors or some other reason, they would call the supervisor, discuss the situation with the supervisor, and then they would make a determination together about where to transport it. Doesn't mean they would be able to go to St. Francis in this instance I'm speaking of, but you would have the chance to know whether you could. Take this same thing now, even here, and you're having a stroke, or you're having a heart attack or something, and you're prepared to transport, and you call the Lawrence Hospital and you say, we have this stroke or heart attack, they're gonna say, you need to go to Prisma, because they know you need an extra level of care. So there will be times when we would not take them to necessarily the local closest hospital, but the most appropriate. So that's what that policy allows, is the ability to go to a specific scene for a specific call and make a determination based off information that you have in real time, and not box it in or paint it into a box where you can't make decisions like everything goes to Lawrence Hospital, because that is not true. And the people that do the care every day are sitting there, and is it true? Okay, so that's what we do here in the county. That's what you have. That's what your EMS provides for you. So if it's unclear, I'll apologize, but I've been in this conversation over the past 3 years about what we need to do. If there are changes that functionally we need to make, I'd be happy to sit down with the responders and we'll go through a policy and talk to the public if we need to, and get something that works for everybody as much as we can. But you're right, we have limited resources and we have to do what we can with our resources, and that's kind of what we do.
Well, I appreciate the answer. The biggest part of it was we can go where, sorry.
Yes.
And that was the biggest part of it right there.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else for public hearing on ordinance 921? All right, hearing none, I'll close public hearing. Next, we have public hearing on ordinance 922, the fire budget FY 22-23. Mr. Higgs, do you have any comments on the fire budget?
No, sir, previous comments still stand.
All right. Time is 5:52, and I will open the floor for public hearing on ordinance 921, the fire budget. If you'd like to speak, please step up to the microphone. Seeing no one, we will close public hearing on ordinance 922. Time is now 5:53, and we will open the floor on public hearing for ordinance 923, lost funds for FY 22-23. If you'd like to speak, please start the microphone. Seeing no one, we will close public hearing on ordinance 923. Just as a reminder, there will be one more public hearing and third reading at the June 28th meeting. Next up, we have another public hearing for ordinance 924. It is to finalize the appropriation and disbursement of the ARPA funds. If you remember, we had a couple of meetings on that, and we allocated those funds, created a resolution on how they were to be dispersed, and this is the ordinance that codifies that. So the time is now 5:54, and I will open the floor for public hearing on ordinance 924 on the ARPA fund disbursement. If you'd like to speak, to the microphone.
I don't know it. My name is Chrissy Marie Lundy Edge, and do I have to actually speak in a word, or can I just give y'all the paperwork on it? Now, although it might not be filled out correctly, but I most definitely need to hire someone to do some more paperwork to get it at that time and place. But I most definitely am a candidate and qualified for this. It's a pre-qualification for the application for the reimbursement of the disbursement. And it's a pre-qualification application for me being part of the SBII as well. And so yeah, that's that.
Mr. Chair, we'll take a look at this along with
Thank
county
you.
attorney. let's make sure we have your information so we get this in.
Yes, sir, and I would also like to become the new game warden.
Okay. The county attorney and myself take a look at this.
Thank
We'll
you.
be in touch.
And I worked hard for this, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're still open for public hearing on ordinance 924. Seeing no one else, we'll close the public hearing. I will now call for a motion on ordinance 924, third and final reading.
I move for third reading of ordinance 924.
Second by Mr. Crowe. Is there any discussion? I just have one thing I'd like to first thank all those who submitted applications for coming forward and approaching council and for all my fellow council members. Many an hour going through them and listening and culling down the disturbance is one of the hardest things we've done in a while. So I appreciate all y'all's support, time and diligence to that effort. There are no other comments. I will now call for a vote. All those in favor of third and final reading on ordinance 924, please raise your right hand. Passes 7-0. All right, we will move into new business. We have an additional resolution. I will call on Mr. Coleman once again.
Mr. Chairman, this is a new company. This is an additional resolution from the first reading of ordinance 927 is the next item, so I'll just kind of cover both of them while I'm here. A new company invested $19 million in investment and create 155 new jobs, locating in the former Muffin Man facility. We know what happened there with some bankruptcy issues in Hunter Industrial Park. The terms of the FILO are the same as with Muffin Man had, and with their investment number being a little higher, we're actually going to realize more revenue for that on the other project. So that's what the resolution and the FILO are.
All right, thanks, sir. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Coleman on this particular project? The project name on this one. All right. Mr. Coleman, I'll call for a motion on resolution 2022-31C, which is the project sublet inducement resolution.
Motion to approve resolution 2022-31C.
Got a motion by Mr. Rankin. Second by Mr. Carey. Is there further discussion? Mr. Coleman and his staff are working hard when that announcement came. First off, the replacement of the current employees into other jobs nearby was impressive. And then just so quickly find us a new industry to relocate in that building is great. So thank you for that. All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 2022-31C, please raise your right hand. 7-0. And following that right up is their FILO agreement. We have first reading on ordinance 927. You'll have a motion to approve 927 on first reading. Motion by Mr. Carroll. Second. Second by Mr. Trickle. Is there any discussion? All right, here none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the first reading of ordinance 927, please raise your right hand. 7-0. All right, next up, at the last meeting, discussed the subdivision ordinance. We've been talking about subdivisions for a while now, and different things with them. I brought forward a few recommendations and changes, and I appreciate county attorney staff putting these into the current ordinance and highlighting the changes so that they're easy to see. So first, I'd like to open forward with a motion so that we can have some discussion on what we have. So I have a motion for first reading on ordinance 926.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Clark, second by Mr. Rankin. I'll now open the floor for discussion. questions, concerns, recommendations, and things in the current ordinance as it's printed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank you for your leadership on making the necessary amendments to the current ordinance. And I urge my fellow council members, I will be voting in favor of this.
Anyone else? I have one, I have two other things, and we briefly talked about it, we didn't work on any verbiage, but I want to ask the county attorney on section 12, which is the section on legal. We work on a clause that has a appellate process that begins with county council. That doable?
Because we're already in the process of working on that.
Also, now we straight to the next three.
Yes.
Allow that with recommendation not to. My second one is, there's a section here about the manufactured home parks. And given the nature of how in-depth this ordinance is and how different a subdivision is from a manufactured home park, it's my recommendation to pull the manufactured home park section out of the subdivision agreement and create its own ordinance to govern manufactured home parks. Anybody have any opposition to that?
Section 10.
That's section 10. And of course, it references 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other sections. So obviously, those will pile into the manufactured home ordinance. I think it'd be cleaner and better for those who are trying to build subdivision, those who are trying to develop manufactured home parks, when they're going to look at our ordinances. It would be much less confusing if they had their own space. There's no objection from any of the council members. We work on that for the next reading.
Right.
And then the third thing I'd like input to council,
In the legal section.
Section
of the
12.
appellate, I got section 12.
Right, they're
Under
gonna-
which stuff
it'll probably be a new subtitle.
A new subtitle.
And currently, it goes straight to the circuit court. If there's no variance requested, this would solidify that it comes through county council before it goes to the court system.
Just want to make sure I was putting it on the right category.
And then the other thing, I would love to see us do a tree preservation clause in this ordinance for the minor and major subdivisions. It would not affect homeowners looking to subdivide their personal lots, but it would be in effect for developers who are developing property for subdivision. I've read several different ones. They're all over the board on their side requirements of the trees. Actually, the largest is here locally in the city of Lawrence, and it is a 30-inch diameter, which is slightly bigger. I think about 12 inches. I'm sorry, 30-inch circumference. I think it'd be better for us to use diameter. That's easier to figure out in circumference. I'm not staring at the tree. But I'm gonna request that staff, and I've already talked to the planner a little bit, that they compile something for us in conjunction with surrounding counties, something that's not arbitrary, that actually kind of goes with it, and bring that back to us to consider for this ordinance. And what I'd like to do, so we have first reading tonight. Second reading and public hearing will not be until the first meeting in July. But I want to ask if staff will prepare those two changes and bring it back to solely for discussion at the 28th meeting, which allows us to make a few more changes and discuss it before second reading and public hearing on the first meeting in July. Or any questions or discussion on that? All right. Is there any further discussion on first reading? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving ordinance 926 on first reading, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Abstentions? The vote is 6-0 to 1. Councilman Anderson. All right, that concludes our regular business. Moves us into public comment. First, we have Al.
I guess my concerns and questions are more for the city. And there is some confusion with the 18 residents on Old Colony, is because they are county, they are not city, and we are against the access. So we don't know who to go towards I can't.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm gonna say this again.
Sorry.
You're good. The Old Colony Road access, we are against the 18 residents on the road. Our confusion is the fact that residents are county, not city, and we do not want to be annexed, and we want to be part of city. So how can we fix it or not?
Well, I'll do my best. I think that's a conversation with Mr. Tribble, and that would be his district over there. So that property, the short is 1,600 acre large tract being acquired by the city of Clinton. That property abuts already city property, or property that's inside the city limits, actually abuts some more of their property. So they can annex that property without bothering you and your neighbors whatsoever.
Okay.
So they'll be able to bring that property into their city limits, which I fully expect them to annex. I haven't publicly said that, but I have no doubt that's the road they're heading down. When that happens, anything that transpires on that property will be governed by municipal ordinances from the city of Clinton. So like the subdivision and stuff we're talking about tonight, it wouldn't necessarily govern that property when they annex it. Their ordinances, which are normally more stringent than ours are, that would govern that property. As far as the access road, if I'm not mistaken, Old Colony is a state road. So even there, we wouldn't be able to have much say over the state DOT. Some things like even our ordinances, it requires developers to widen the road and make it more flowable for traffic within a certain size subdivision. I do not know if City of Clinton has that, but it would definitely be worth reaching out. I do not, Mr. Trevor, do you know what their meetings are? Or does anybody know what their meetings are?
The next one's canceled, it's not until July 11th, and it's supposed to close in June.
Gotcha. Well, I have no doubt they'll acquire that property, but how it gets developed has not been decided. I believe what they saw at their last meeting was just a recommendation from someone. To my knowledge, nothing is set in stone on the development of that property. And I would, as I would do any citizen, I strongly encourage you to express your opinion, but definitely let them know. And I know I have, and I'm sure Mr. Tribble and several others have had conversations with leadership in Clinton to make sure they're aware there are concerns. But I definitely encourage you and your neighbors to voice those directly to them. Thank you. All right, next we have Ms. Stewart.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I'm Susan Stewart from Fountain Inn, Lawrencetown. First, I'd like to thank you, Chairman Brown, because you followed through with your pledge to provide planning commission members with county email addresses as a contact tool for those of us citizens. I've already used those email addresses for communication on a topic that I would like to bring before you tonight. Although I've yet to receive an acknowledgement from anyone on that communication, but thank you for doing that. I think that's going to be a very positive way for us as citizens to reach out to these community appointed people and be able to address things without getting into their personal situation. And I applaud you for that. I would encourage you, where it might be appropriate, to also consider doing that for other commissions and boards. I've had that experience in my professional life, and I just think it's a great solution for communication, particularly when you got these people that are serving somewhat in a volunteer capacity, but we need to be able to communicate with them because they're here conducting your business. Now, considering what I would like to discuss tonight, it seems like there's a development issue that comes up about every 1 or 2 weeks. As I did with the Planning Commission members, I also sent you an email of a copy of a recent article that was in the Greenville Times regarding the actions taken by a developer of Mark 3, Mr. John Beeson, on the historic McDavid property in Pelzer. I hope you're aware of that. The developer raised 2 historic houses that date back to the early 1800s on his development, despite the fact that he had promised to work with 2 local preservation and historical groups to preserve those 2 structures on that development that he now has in progress. Not only were those 2 historic homes demolished, but the antique furniture furnishings and finishes inside those historic homes were destroyed. This malicious action was apparently in retaliation against the Greenville government officials for turning down one of his other projects. This illustrates the type of developer that we are concerned about coming into Lawrence County. Their bottom line is profit, and they are not concerned about our beautiful land, our culture, our history, or our unique community of citizens. Corporate greed is their goal, and bullying tactics seem to be a method of operation that they go with if they can't get their way. I'm asking you to take charge and not be dictated to or bullied by these developers. I'm asking you to watch Mr. Beeson and Mark III, because I know that he's in Lawrence County. He's in Lawrence County, he's in the city of Lawrence, he's in the city of Clinton. We need safeguards in place, and of course I have asked for some of those before. We need to be able to stand up and say no if developers are a threat to Lawrence County. Unscrupulous developers have a record that should be a red flag for us, and he certainly has a record. We do not have to do business with them. If they want to do business in Lawrence County, they need to do it on our terms. Do not allow this travesty and destruction as occurred in Greenville County to come here. And hopefully this is a lesson learned. I'm aware that Mr. Beeson has projects, as I said, in our county and 2 of our municipalities. So beware. I would also remind you that there was some discussion about trying to set up some town hall type meetings for those of us who are concerned about developments and other issues in the county. I hope we'll still stay focused on being able to do that in the future. And I would just say, let's plan our development and growth carefully, even if it means a pause or a delay. It's better now to do it before the damage is done, like we saw to those 2 important houses that are just down the road from us. I ask you to protect our county. I ask you to protect our history and, of course, protect our farmland. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. Jay Wiesner Jr. Okay, Mr. Junior signed up next. I'm sorry.
What?
Junior signed up next. I apologize.
Okay. You know what? Your department heads tell you and everything is one thing. What I see is something else. And talk about it this morning at 7:35. I was at Walmart, and your truck number 8025, which is an ambulance, pulled up and stopped illegally and across marks where they shouldn't be parked. 2 female EMS people got out and went in Walmart shopping. Now, I don't mind the county employees using rolling stock for the personal use. What bothers me is when I want to use it to go to the hospitals. Mathematically, for you to take me or anybody else in the county out to the hospital of their choice and their doctors is only on $1,000 in taxes. It's $2.75. And I'd gladly pay $2.75 and want to go to where my doctors are. And what they tell you about, you can ask to go someplace else, or if they're having a heart attack, there's not a lot of truth to that. I have a friend of mine by the name of Ted Nash, and he was on the council, and his son, an air-conditioned man, and his son had a dang heart attack. And they had a big argument about where he wanted to go. And Ted's family wanted him to take him to Greenville. And then finally, after a heated discussion, they took him to Greenville. And Tim Jones is his brother-in-law and was there when that happened. And he knows about that. So what these people tell you and what you hear is one thing, but I see what goes on in this county. You take the other day, I come through Waterloo. I like to fish, and I was down at the boat ramp, and I looked down here, comes one of them $300,000-$400,000 county fire trucks.
and they was doing pretty good speed, and they turned left for the shortcut, go across the hill. There's a black pickup truck following them. I couldn't catch them, and I assure you I can drive. And they went around through them little curves, and I didn't get close enough to get the tag number on them. And the last time I saw them, they was on 39 going past Cross Hill, going down towards Saluda. Now I ask you, why would we drive a truck that costs that much money from one end of this county to the other? That's not the only thing. You can go down to the Mexican restaurant at dinner time, and you can see 3 or 4 of the county fire trucks parked there. You can see the EMS people going up the Chinese restaurant. Matter of fact, this young fellow right here tried to have me arrested down there one day. I think it was him, wasn't it you?
Mr. Weaver, I'm gonna ask you not to speak to the staff. You can address council, there's no time to address.
Okay, well, I told them what I thought about the EMS. The guy said I couldn't talk to that way. They called it, it's kind of comical to me. They called the city police, and the police officer came up. I thought it was a little brownie from the Girl Scouts. I never saw so much equipment on one short person in my life. And I told her, go ahead and arrest me. And she said, well, she didn't have a reason to arrest me. And so I decided not to create a disturbance. And I just sat down on my pickup truck and listened to her. She gave me a lecture about the laws and all the things. I didn't appreciate that. So my issue here is that I went by a business here in Lawrence, and I saw a nice 4-door Ford truck, probably $80,000 truck, had a camper on it and all, had a county tag, nothing written on the side of it. So I said, you know, we ought to start marking all these. The EMS director got a new Ford automobile the other day. It must be a $70,000 Ford or more. Got all the bells and whistles on it.
He got the Chevrolet, we didn't buy any Ford for EMS, so the Chevrolet was $37,000.
It must cost, well, anyway, it's in material, he got a new one. The one that he couldn't drive, he gave to the quick response people. So now you got 3 vehicles to maintenance and all. You got the truck that they did have, the quick response one that he gave, and a new one.
That one actually replaced one that had 270 something. That one replaced an older one that had 270 something miles on it. It'll be in the county auction here shortly.
But it's parked up there and being used as a quick response.
That's great.
What they tell you and what I see is 2 different things. And I don't come up here to tell you a story that's not true. But anyway, I don't mind the county employees using the rolling stock for their own personal use, because I see. But what bothers me most of all is they're not marked. And they got a little diamond shape that I couldn't read if I put my glasses on and it was stopped. And one part of the county, the landfill, they have all their trucks marked. And I think every car, every truck, every piece of rolling stock should have letters on them big enough that I can read it when they're going 100 miles an hour. That's me going 50 and they're going 50 the other way. That's 100 miles an hour. And you got to be able to see who it is and who owns that truck. I see some of the personal cars with families in them on Sundays taking a good ride. They're not on county business. Well, I won't get personal or anything like that. But what I see and what goes on is 2 different things. I'm sure that Mr. Kent Balance can tell you what happened to him in his brother-in-law. It bothers me that on $1,000 I pay in taxes for $2.29 extra, I can go to the doctor of my choice. And there's a lot of people who don't bother about calling EMS. My wife got sick the other night, I put her in a car, took her to the hospital. But Barry Lynch's wife got sick the other night, 2 o'clock in the morning, he didn't call EMS. He put her in the car and took her to the hospital at Simpsonville. There's a lot of people don't even call you. And it's totally, it's in the minutes of 2019. Matter of fact, Garrett McDaniels was the only guy that brought this up in the last 5 or 10 years about riding in EMS vehicles where they want to go. Those vehicles belong to me and the taxpayers in the county. They don't belong to you. If we want to go to our doctors or our choice, we should be. You don't know enough about this county to be able to tell the people they can't go. This county never had a decent hospital. They don't have one now. If you want to know the truth, and I'm not talking from what people tell me. I've been in a large hospital twice with afibrillation. One time, the doctor in 2 hours had me back home and I was good. The next one on a Friday night decided he's going to keep me to Monday and transfer me. I took all my gear and went home. But I'm disappointed in the whole council, if you want to know the truth. Because for a few more cents, we ought to be able to go where we want to. It's not about saving money. The EMS people are here to serve us. It's not a job for them. And when you don't provide us transportation to our doctors and the history of this county, like Mosey Dunn said, I'll quote him. He said, if you don't know where you've been, you can't tell where you're going. And that's a problem with you people. You don't know where this county came from and where all the doctors are. There's 50 specialist doctors in Greenville and Spartanburg County. Most of the people use them. Everybody over on that side of the county wants to go to South Memorial. People down in the lower part go to Newberry. We have a right to go where we want to. It shouldn't be left up to somebody sitting back in here saying, well, if we take them up there, we won't have another ambulance. The protocol used to be if they had 2 ambulances in the county, 2 could go out. And they didn't ask you where you wanted to go or why. They took you. And you got to realize 30 or 40 minutes is too much on a heart attack. You got an hour. And you've added an extra 45 minutes in there parking around. Pardon my French. That's the Navy in me, I guess. But anyway, when you call and you get a quick response unit, and if they come out and put the equipment on you and check you out and everything, then they decide whether to call the box unit. And then the box unit comes. And then the box unit takes you somewhere. If you want to go, or normally to the launch hospital. Before, the box unit used to come pick you up and take you where you wanted to go. My issue with the whole thing is I pay the taxes. These people here pay the taxes. And when they say they want to go to the Greenville, the hospital system, that's where they want to go. And if they're paying the bill and it's theirs, why don't they use it? You say, oh, we're going to save $1 or $2. Actually, in the minutes of 2019, you said you saved $1 million in taxes. Well, out of 380 some bills, one bill is only about $2.90 to me. And I'm sure that Mrs. Anderson would like to pay $2.90, go wherever she wanted to. You have a misconception of what the EMS system is for. It's not to save money. It's not for these employees. It's for the taxpayer to go where they want to go. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And I'm disappointed in the fact that the people know what I'm saying, don't speak up. And you sitting on this county council, all of them should be aware of what's going on in the county. You can't come to these meetings and expect them faithful here to tell you what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Wiedner Jr., did you still want to speak again or? Okay. Yes, sir. All right. That concludes public comments. We'll now move to county council comments. I'll start on my right, Ms. Corn.
No comment.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to give a quick shout out and thanks to Councilman Carroll for his leadership on council and all the guidance and leadership to provide for specifically EMS. And I feel like our position as a county in regards to EMS is probably the strongest position it's ever been. There's obviously still work to be done. And that's definitely just a result of living in a county that's starting to grow. and trying to catch up from where we were in years past, bringing it up to speed. I just want to thank you for your leadership there. But lastly, I want to say, go vote, go vote, go vote. We got 35 minutes before the polls close. It was very important for us to exercise the arguably the greatest right that we have as citizens of the United States of America, and that is to cast our vote to make change happen. If you have a candidate that is proposing changes, then you need to go vote for that person. So we need to make sure that we exercise our right to vote. And I've heard that turnout is pretty low today. So if there's anyone in the room that has not voted yet, make sure you hit the polls here before they close. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Strode.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had intended to bring your attention to a picture that my cousin Mark Plaxico sent me from the Atlanta Fire Department. So he went out on the highway, and there were a group of disabled kids that had been involved in an accident out there, and they were able to pick up a nice picture made with them and whatnot. And he was telling me that they are approaching 300 calls this year out of the Atlanta Fire Department. And it just reminded me of how much we owe to our volunteer fire departments. You know, not to single them out because there are a lot of people running calls. It just brought my attention to it, and I'd like to share that with you this evening and make you thankful for your own volunteers at home. One other comment about Jay Weister Jr.'s observations about the pay for the EMS people. So when I was on county council 10 years ago, we had 10 openings all the time. And 10 openings is just a lot. I mean, given the number of people that we have, it just indicates that you're not paying the market rate to this point. And that I come on to council this time, we got the same 10 openings. And that this budget is an attempt, and we did it last year as well. We made an attempt to narrow that, got down to a low of 1, I believe, and we're back at 3. There is some turnover and some volatility in that market. But the fact is that his point has been correct for all of history except for the last minute or two. And that you can't hire talent for less than the market rate of talent and ability. And this council has addressed that and lived up to it, and a good thing for that situation.
I appreciate what Weister said. I'm not throwing stone to rock anybody working in that county, but he did bring up the subject of Ted Nash when he had a stroke. And that was a dark spot on our AMS, because they sat there and they did argue with his doctor, saying he was not having a stroke. He done had 3 weeks before. But we're working on it. And we're not perfect, nobody's perfect. But I just appreciate him. He did come to bring some points out. And we're working on it. And like Mr. Carroll said, I'm going to take somebody's ankle, sprained ankle, and go over here. But if it's a stroke, if it's a heart attack, you need to take the best. Place to go to best for the kids. That's all.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Anderson.
On my way to council this evening, I had the opportunity, Jaden put his hand to his ear, so I'll make sure he's hearing me. I had an opportunity to pass by the detention center, and I just didn't know exactly what was going on, and I didn't have time to stop and run in and ask what was going on over there. So as soon as I got in, I talked to the deputies and the sheriff back there. So it's another opportunity to see the penny that we put on the ballot on last year at work, because the evidence building is being the shovel is pushing the soil right now. And so that's one other thing that'll be positive for the county. We as the county council, one of our major goals, or either you want to say the mission of Lawrence County, would be to improve the quality of life for all the citizens that we serve. And I think we take a positive step and an active step in that direction always. We don't always come up to where the people might want us to be, but we make an assertive effort to make sure that we are looking out for the best for each of our constituents. And so I want you to see that we are working toward the goal of making everything as far as the service that we give to you better. I realize that on every occasion, we cannot please everybody, but we do make the opportunity to do that. On several occasions, I've had the opportunity to see that a person have asked to be transferred to another area, and also that the employee have seen that the individual or the patient that they picked up need extra service, and they did go the extra mile. So we are focusing on all of that and trying to make sure that we are covering every base that needs to be covered. I ask that we work together as neighbors and as citizens helping each other, and I think we'll get to where we need to get to. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
I did want to mention that I was fortunate to be able to attend a funeral of a dear friend today, Alex Babbs, who remembered his family. He was quite a man in the NRE community, and it's just an honor to be able to be there with him today. I appreciate all the comments from everyone today. I guess I really like us to debate fact. So if maybe we have varying difference in what we think are the actual facts, that frames the way that you come at a situation. And so I hope tonight we at least get some things squared away. The intent of the policy we have is to be wide enough in its scope to be able to meet the needs of all the people who call. And so there will be situations that you have to address at the time of service as to where they go and what their condition is. We have humans that work for us on these vehicles, and they run very critical calls, emotional calls. They're overworked at times, and it's stressful, and they make human decisions. What they go by, their guidelines, if we read them and take them just as what we read, they're good. And the application of that is where we maybe stub our toe occasionally or something. But we certainly want to fix that when it happens. And if that does, and they call and have a complaint, we'll walk through that individual thing and fix it. We want to be better for it. I signed up to be on council. I went out there and raised my hand and said, vote for me. So if you want to attack me, I'm good with that. That's what I signed up for. That's no problem. County employees did not. And they work really hard. And their jobs are really hard. And I'm not saying they don't stop at Walmart and get something they need. Maybe they need some water. Maybe they need deodorant. Maybe they're out there at 108 degrees running calls in the interstate on a car wreck or something, and they're just about exhausted. I don't know, but I know they show up for work and they do good things, and we try to provide them an environment they want to work in. We don't send a quick response vehicle to a call to determine whether an ambulance goes to a call. When a call comes into 911 and they request an ambulance is sent. Now, if there would be a delay, if the ambulance is further away than and a QRV is closer, that QRV may go first to get care to the patient quicker. But the ambulance is coming. We have DHEC regulations that guide how we respond. 911 center will dispatch us. EMS is a tool of a 911 system that is set up to take your calls and to respond to those calls. They don't come up with their own ideas and plans about how to do things. Each individual human is different, and maybe you don't get the exact service every time, but we work on that. And so we will continue to work and try and get better. And I'll apologize if anybody had a bad outcome from something. We'll try to fix that. Mr. Yance had a personal experience. He's explained to you the way they handled it, and but he understands as a representative on this council in the scope of what they're doing. I don't think I know we're not taking the county's resources, the taxpayers' resources, but I'll tell you, I live in Lawrence County and I pay taxes. And so essentially that truck is mine too. And I kind of want it to go to the right location so that if I have a need for it, it's available to me as well. And so I don't make decisions about these, the trucks and the processes and the policies based off not having the knowledge of what they do and how they do and what the functions are, and that I might need them. And so I want to make sure that what we're providing for the citizen would meet my needs as well. And so that's what we're trying to do. I'll apologize if we've been unclear on the way that our council works or the way that our public safety works or something. If anybody wants more information, I'll be happy to answer anything. Email me, call me, anything. I'm going to tell you the truth. I may not tell you what you want to hear, but I will tell you the truth, and then you can decide on that. Our responders are awesome. Should we pay them more money? Probably. Do they work really hard? Yes. We're working on all of that. So I want you to know that if you feel like you were wronged or something, it's not because we're setting up an environment to harm the citizen. We are not. We're trying to make changes that are positive for the citizens. I want to protect the county employees. I don't want to get them in the middle of a debate. They shouldn't have to. I also trust them. So if they tell me something, I'm taking it as truth. And until I prove it, it's not. They're not out there on the ambulance right now, but there are staff members on the ambulance. And whatever happens out there, they can't control. They can tell me what the policy is, but they don't see every stop, every response. They don't see everything, but the citizen does. So I respect that. And we'll try to fix where we don't give you the best service. But thank you for what you do, and I support you 100%. Sheriff as well, all responders, all county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few comments this evening. We'll start with this one. Mr. Carroll, you chair the committee that governs EMS. If I understand correctly, the current policy we're operating off of was done in 2009. Before the discussion in 2019, there was a change in department head for EMS. And it's my understanding that the minutes, and I wasn't on council, but I went back and read the minutes that Mr. Wheaton was referencing. And y'all did discuss it. However, the director at the time never brought you back a policy, or never brought council back a policy to approve. So it was never approved. So they were still working on the 2009 policy, as you mentioned. Given the fact that we've had another recent department head change, I believe it would be appropriate for you to call your committee and relook at that policy and any others that may need to be addressed. Work with your committee, work with staff, ask for public input. But I'll, as you as the chairman, I'll let you convene that committee as you see fit, address that policy, and then work with the director that once y'all finalize a policy that is brought back to full council for true approval, so we don't have to find ourselves in this situation in the future. Next, I want to talk about one thing Mr. Wheaton also talked about, the fire truck. It actually calls attention to one of our biggest problems we have in this community. The reason we have fire trucks, unfortunately, running all over this county is because we find ourselves in a time where volunteers are few and far between. Our main station that they're pointing out of is on 221, and they are running calls. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that they're having to run calls. I hate that we have to take those fire trucks that are $300,000, $400,000 and run them all over this county and rack miles up. But the fact of the matter is, when somebody's house is on fire and they call 911, they expect a fire truck to show up. And a couple of things we are doing for that is we are adding more staff at the request of the administrator and the director. We are working on our volunteer retainment. We're looking at providing stipend. We're looking at providing initiatives and training that is more encouraging and more appealing to the current volunteers and potential new ones. But it does, what you witness, calls attention to one of our biggest problems in this county is the lack of volunteer help in those smaller communities. We've lost 3 volunteer fire departments over the last 18 months. And the only way to fix that is to cover it with paid staff, because once again, when you pick up the telephone, or citizen picks up the telephone, they expect somebody to show up. And I hope that some of these new, one, add more staff to cover the county, but two, truly paying attention to our volunteers and offering them more than what they deserve, because they've been underappreciated for a long time in this community. And I hope this council, we are committed to doing more for those volunteers, so that we don't have to run trucks all over the county. The only other thing I want to address on the vehicles, I've done a lot of research lately on that. The county outside the sheriff's department owns about 300 vehicles, and that's everything from the Chevy Impala that the VA director drives all the way up to the big trucks that the roads and bridges run. But out of 300, there's 300 on the nose right today. Out of 300 vehicles, 9 of them are unmarked. 2 of them are waiting to be marked. So it will, the official count will be, once it's done, 7 unmarked vehicles in the county. Those are the ones that we do have that are unmarked. I won't speak to the sheriff. He's got undercovers, he's got detectives, he's got different things. So I didn't even get into that. As far as expense, he's not here tonight, so I won't call his name, but our purchasing director does a really good job at finding used equipment, finding used trucks, finding deals on new ones. We've been sitting waiting on some, they're actually for the sheriff, waiting on cars and with the shortage and everything. He found a deal on a different manufacturer that actually saved us money. And it's the new Tahoe. The sheriff got new Tahoes instead of Explorers, and they were $36,000 a piece, which is a deal. I'd love to go buy a brand new Tahoe for $36,000. I'd do it tomorrow if I could, but I can't, because they won't sell it to me for that cheap. While it may look like an $80,000 truck, that is not necessarily what the county paid for it. And we are gracious that these manufacturers have those programs to allow government to save money on these vehicles. But I did want to address that. I look forward to hearing back from Mr. Carroll's committee on an updated policy for EMS, and I would like us to specifically address the out-of-county transports and make sure that the verbiage in our policy is easy to understand by our staff, those that are on the trucks every day, so that we are doing the best thing that we can do for the citizens of this county. I do want to say happy birthday to the Army today. And also, I would like to recognize Ms. Sheila Kirkman. I'll call her out. She was not expecting this. Ms. Kirkman was hired as the new 911 director. We are great to have you. You do have some massive shoes to fill. But we are looking forward to working with you on and seeing the things that you bring to Lawrence County. So welcome. That is all I have. We do have 2 matters for executive session. They are a contractual matter related to EMS, legal briefing for the original lawsuit. We'll have a motion to move into executive session. Motion by Mr. Carroll. Second by Mr. Rankin. The time is now 6:43. We will reconvene in executive session at 6:50. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please raise your right hand.
At least.
All right. All right, the time is now 7:13. I will call county council back into open session. County council met in executive session to discuss two matters. The first one, a contractual matter relating to EMS, and the second, a legal agreement on project decision. There was no action taken in executive session, but I will now open the floor for any motions that may be necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that the administrator, our county administrator, have the authority to modify the contractual matter that we have with EMS.
All right, you have a motion by Ms. Anderson. Second by Mr. Carroll. Is there any further discussion on that topic? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Councilmember Patterson in opposition. Is there any other motions to be made? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Carroll, second by Ms. Anderson. I don't hear any discussion. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. I'm sorry, Ms. Clark, I apologize. Please have that recorded for the record. We will now take a short break and then we'll reconvene for our budget. Y'all are not required by any means to stick around. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. All right. Time is now 7:17. I will call the June 14th County Council as a whole budget workshop number 3 to order. We've already said the pledge and had an invitation. So I will turn it over to the county administrator to give us a final review of the budget and allow council to ask any questions of staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I turn it over to our finance director, Ms. Morrow, just to reemphasize what I stated during the last meeting. Took the input from council members and went back to work on the budget following the last workshop. Plugged those in, and then what we did is compare those expenses to historical revenue over time. And we were able to completely balance the budget based on some grant proceeds, settlement funds coming in, everything else were completely balanced out. This is with no tax increase to the general fund. Now, when it comes to fire and EMS, there will be a marginal tax increase in the proposed budget, which is adhered to as far as state code law, state define what we can and can't do within their parameters and come under this. But before that, I wanted to personally I want to take the opportunity to allow me to thank staff. Welcoming me and Ms. Morrow to the county. We're both new. This is our first budget here. We try to be completely inclusive of all of our staff members and allow the department heads and elected positions to come talk to us, work through their budgets one-on-one, and they did a great job of helping us understand it and work with us hand in hand the entirety of the budget process. And moreover, I'd like to thank Ms. Morrow for her leadership and the hard, diligent work she put into this, the long hours, and everything else with this budget. Again, Mr. Chairman, as of this moment, we have a balanced budget. Ms. Morrow is able to give those numbers and be glad.
All right. Anyway, I guess let's hear the total of where we ended up.
30,086,616. 30.
I got 13, I got that.
For me to say it right, 30,086,616.
Thank you.
Just for the record, do you happen to have the increase on the millage for fire and EMS? Might have, if you have the dollar amount percentage, it'd be okay too. I don't know if you have actual millage.
Last year it was 7.32, and this year 8.08.
Fire. You got operation and capital fire there.
Fire is 20.5, and $1.21. So that might be the addition. Hold on a second. At 2.44.
Do you have last year's by chance?
Last year on the mills for fire regular operating budget was 18.1. And the fire cap 1.9, yeah, that's right.
Just for the record, the increases were pursuant to 61320, better known as Act 388.
Overall. All right. If my math is correct, that's an increase of 3.7 mils total for the entire budget. That's everything, that's fire, EMS. And the fire increase only affects those outside of the municipal limits of Lawrence, Clinton, and Fountain.
Yes, sir.
So if you live inside the city limits, you do not pay fire taxes. So for those inside the municipal limits, there's a 0.76 mil increase in your taxes. And just for reference, on a owner occupied dwelling, a mil per mil increase on 100 grand value of your house is $4. So your house is worth 150,000, that's $6 a mil. If your house is worth 200,000, that's $8 a mil. So you can do the math on that. 3.7 times $4, $14 increase per 100,000, basically. That's outside municipal limits. Inside municipal limits, it's $3.04 increase per $100,000 assessed value of your house, which assessments just went out. So if that will help you with constituents to call, that's kind of how you do that math. That's $4 per 100 grand. It's pretty simple. It's the simplest way to pull that down. Are there any questions from staff? We'll of course have the full budget to review. I would ask actually, if y'all have finalized, I'd ask Shannon, she sent it all of us before, or actually this, so that we can all review one more time. We will be having third reading at the next meeting. If you do have a question, concern, something we need to change, that will be the time. Because once we cast that vote, she is done. So,
The citizens, they really, when we just up the fire and the emergency, they know it's a price of service and the overall acreage of this county, so.
and I'll be honest, especially on the EMS side, we were capped at what, or we're capped on all of it. But that cap on such a low number, I mean, 3/4 of a mil basically will only generate $143,000, nothing on what it costs on that system. But because of Act 388, that wonderful thing, that's all we can increase. I'm not a fan of increasing taxes, however, it benefits the service to the citizens, and we've heard this evening the need and desire for more EMS. On that one, I am doing thanks staff for being able to balance the general budget, general operating budget. That's a big deal. That does include the sheriff's department, so that's a big deal. We're able to get there, and so I will Thomas thank Ms. Morrow, but I will take this opportunity to thank him and all the staff. A lot goes into this budget. I know we have some new folks on council. I know this is Clark's first budget. I mean, they start in January by sending out last year's budget and request forms to all the department heads throughout the county. From there, they have a deadline. Department heads to submit those back to finance. Ms. Morrow puts those together. She runs it by Mr. Diggs, county administrator. He checks them out, and then they begin to set up budget meetings. It hadn't always been this way. It's done now, and will continue to be done as long as I'm here. Anyways, is the administrator meets with all the department heads and lets them have input as they should have. They go through them one by one. At any time, any council member has a desire to sit in on those, they're welcome. I sit in on a few. This year, I sit in on 5 actually. They're all elected, or 4 elected and 1 appointed office. Asked me to sit in with their budget meetings, and I gladly oblige them. But any council member is always welcome to sit in on those meetings. But they put in a lot of time and a lot of hours to prepare this budget for us. So I just want to thank you both and all the staff who work with the administration, because not all of them got everything they wanted. That's a fact. And I appreciate you being willing to work with us and work with your fellow colleagues that need things too. We all departments made sacrifices here and there to ensure that the county as a whole is moving in a positive direction. So thank you to administration and all the staff for all this.
Let me mention something, Mr. Chairman of the council. For the first time in my tenure here, all the fire contracts, thanks to Mr. Lindley and to Mr. Higgs, were signed, sealed, and delivered before deadline. which allowed to get that budget.
Fantastic.
Done.
Greg, thank you, and Kurt, thank you and your staff for preparing those and working with fire board chairmen to get those submitted. All right, are there any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, second by Mr. Runyon. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Thank you all.